Welcome to Hope for Our Times. Hey, everyone, I got to say this. You're going to be really blessed today because not only do we have just a fantastic guest, one of your favorites, but he's also joining me in studio. He drove down to be here with us. So please welcome Scott Townsend. Scott, this is great having you here.
Thank you very much, Tom. Great to be here.
It's wonderful. Whenever we can get a guest to actually come to the studio, man, it's just off the charts. Yeah. And so, Scott, you are a technologist. We first met, I think, back in 2019 when we had a conference out in the desert.
Right.
And you've been such a blessing to the entire prophecy community, I guess you would call it, or community of eschatology. And what
and
a blessing.
The Watchman community, too.
The Watchman community. Right. That's really what this comes down to.
Yeah,
so
it does, yeah.
You are the founder of I Am a Watchman.
Right.
And it's really helping to equip people. You're one of the tech people that really helps all the tech people to understand. In fact, we have a podcast. You have a podcast you regularly do with Britt Gillette.
That's right.
John Haller, and I think also Patrick Wood.
Yes.
And it's just fantastic.
Right.
And but we're just going to get going. If you're ready to go,
I am ready.
Okay, I'm just going to fire this off. Okay, so Scott, you're referred to as a watchman. Can you please explain what that is, where it comes from, and how it shapes what you do?
So I think that being a watchman is some debate whether it's a calling or a responsibility, and I'm in between those two positions. When you are looking out into the distance, like you're on a wall, Ezekiel 33, and you're looking out for warning signs and dangers, and you're trying to alert those that you're protecting that danger is coming. In today's world, we don't walk around on a wall. We are looking at outwardly on the internet. We're looking at news cycles and everything else, and we're trying to interpret what we see based on the Bible, not on conjecture, but on what the Bible says about what we're expected to have in these days, and we're helping to warn people about that. And so at a fundamental level, a watchman is someone that cares enough to intercede for people and to explain, help them connect the dots about what is happening today, because so many in the church are not always biblically literate with the Old Testament and the prophets, especially like Daniel's coming to life right now, for sure. And also, they just have not heard this from the platform, from pastors right now. And so there's a big role for people, the church, the Watchman community, to step in there and help people understand.
Yeah. So someone like me equips the saints in a particular way based on my pastoral leadership for many years, and also in my eschatology, because I've been teaching eschatology for a long time. You equip the equippers, but you also help the people to understand. And I this is a real blessing. I meet a lot of pastors across the entire country, even in other countries too. But if I think just here in the United States, a lot of guys I've known for years, we've been friends. And one I just had a conversation with last week, and he said, I really want to teach Bible prophecy. He teaches every Sunday. He's been doing it for decades, but I don't really understand it that well. Right. And he said, would you be willing to come in and teach sometime, or even help me to kind of understand Bible prophecy where I could teach it sometimes? I said, absolutely. I said, we can put together a conference for you. I can send you some outlines to help get you started or whatever you want to do. And you bring it to a level to really put this together to equip people like that. Because a lot of the churches that aren't teaching Bible prophecy, it's not that they're against it. There's many that are. But it's not that they're all against it if they're not teaching it, but they don't really know where to start.
That's right. And it's a little bit overwhelming, let's admit, Tom.
It is.
You can go off the deep end quickly in this area. And so, but what we want to do is make sure that pastors are equipped with the fundamentals of what the Word says, and that's what our mutual friend, James Panafino here, his Perspectives in Prophecy, is an excellent resource. And he has a Bible study on his website that allows anybody to basically host a Bible study in their Sunday school group, or that is eschatologically, equipping in that sense. And where I think most of my passion right now is to help the normal body of Christ person out there to have the right resources to leave behind, in addition to Pastor Panafino's information and your material too, to equip the tribulation saints that are going to be coming in after we're gone.
I think it's just, I think it's great. We're going to get into some of the tech things currently in a minute. Okay. But let me ask you a little bit more going on along these lines. So you've been involved with both technology and ministry for years. So how has your background in technology shaped your, I guess you would say, your understanding of prophecy and your approach to what you do?
Well, that's a good question. Because I do have a tech background, and I've had, mostly in software development and startups, I have a really good appreciation and understanding of tech and how to apply that tech to project the gospel and teaching resources into the future, both for today and in the future. And so it's missional. I call myself at this point in my Christian walk a missionary to tribulation saints, is how I express what I really feel my passion is right now. And any means that we can do that. Websites, I've got a Web 3.0 website, so a decentralized website. I've got different tech levers, including the Rapture Kit USB drives, that allow us to preserve the teaching and Word of God, the Bibles, all of the things that are needed for tribulation saints and for people today. Because look, we have a big mission field today, and people do not fully understand yet what is happening. And so these resources come in just as they do from your ministry, Tom, and they are helping to unravel kind of, the noise and confusion and the distraction and even the deception out there, and try to reduce it down into what the essentials are for people to know.
Yeah, it's great. So with Trump's recent victory, we see the dynamic, or things are going to change, and it's likely to have some significant biblical implications, or I would say global implications, but also biblical at the same time. Do you believe that this can mark a turning point in the trajectory of prophecy?
Well, certainly I think every day we get closer, right? So I think that I've been watching very carefully on what has happened during the election, and I have two minds about it right now, Tom. One side is a huge sigh of relief that we get to put some of the more extreme left stuff, and that gets shoved aside a little bit right now in this next season. But on the other hand, I think that I still see a Hegelian dialectic process going on, and it's hard for me as I look at other people and what their interpretations of everything are. You see the Watchman community saying, hey, Trump is not an idol. Don't put him in that position. He's a flawed human being just like we are. And let's see this as an opportunity to kind of come back towards the center, or even more to the right. So I think that from that point of view, we have to be careful and discerning about what is happening with his agenda and his policies. But I am encouraged by it.
Yeah, I would say same thing. My concern with the church is, okay, now we have this victory and everybody can just chill out. I believe now we need to press forward harder than ever before.
I agree.
We have a window of opportunity to do something. It's almost like God is saying, okay, here you go. Here's your opportunity. What are you going to do?
Right.
And I think in a sense, I would even say that it's a test. But I view it, and I voted for Trump. I'm thankful for this. I feel like I could breathe. Same thing. Like I wake up on Wednesday morning, I'm thinking, I feel like I can breathe. But when Constantine came to power, what happened? Suddenly, the church is no longer going to be persecuted,
right.
And then you have this rise in the state church. You have all these other different dynamics that changed after that. That really, in that persecution, the church was growing. You started looking at countries where the church is persecuted.
Right.
The church grows. So I look at this, and that's my concern, is that with believers, especially people in Bible prophecy, there's one side of Bible prophecy people, they're just calling Trump the devil. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, I just don't see the fruit in that. But the other side that concerns me is now we don't really have to do anything.
That's right.
And that's just insane.
No, I think we have to push as hard as we can right now.
Absolutely, and I'm concerned that people are going to be really lulled to sleep during this time.
It could be. But I think the globalists still exert a tremendous amount of pressure, and there's plenty of dominoes they can tip over that'll distress the church. So we have to be careful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, we can see I want to get to some of these things. All right. As we look at this, what do you see coming, let's say in the next 6 months, there's a new president. Now, granted, this could all change within the next week. Somebody could be assassinated. The whole thing could change. But as of right now, where do you see this going?
Well, I think that that's really hard to predict, obviously, but I hope that the new administration comes in and things begin to improve for us in the United States. As you said, it might be a reprieve of sorts. And I think that if you look at the role of Israel in the end times, certainly our role to support Israel and to transfer arms and other support measures that we do is exceedingly important in this time, because we know that what they're going to be facing in the future, right? Ezekiel 38. And there's a role there. I don't know that anyone's smart enough on the planet to actually understand exactly what's going to happen. So I think that there's going to be a lot of content for you can't make this stuff up. I think you're still going to have a lot of content for that you do, which I love those episodes that you do. So it's just so important that we grasp what is really happening here. And the idea of a left-right paradigm and the controlled opposition, and now we were bent really far left, and now we're swinging right. We got to be very cautious about how we get lulled into this safety procedure, because I just think it could be very volatile as well.
Scott, moving forward with that, let's talk a little bit about digital currency, because if we go back just a few months, it was really hanging over our head. This thing's going to shut down. We're going into digital currency. Do you think that dynamic has slowed down some?
Not
or
at
it's
all.
Still coming? Okay.
It's coming.
Okay.
Yeah, it's coming like a freight train. And our mutual friend, Britt Gillette, just wrote up an excellent article on a Substack about the steps leading up to digital currencies and eventually to the mark of the beast. And he did a linear process of disclosing that in his best thinking. I highly regard Britt's understanding of macroeconomics and digital currencies as well. So I also believe that there's no way this is going to stop. And I think that the precursor to this is going to be some kind of a financial problem where people panic. And remember, in the Hegelian dialectic, this is what the elites are trying to do. They inject noise and chaos into the system in order to move people from left into the center and from the right into the center for the proposed solution, which is according to their plans, right? So I think that eventually all the control mechanisms, the CBDCs, the real world asset, tokenization of assets and the physical assets in the real world, and all of the other technologies that we see we're past, I like to say that we're past convergence. Convergence was the word we used to describe all the things that were happening as a way of distinguishing this season, which began about 10 years ago, against all the other decades in which people thought it was the end times. So what was unique about the word convergence was that it described a new state to what we see in Bible prophecy. Well, I believe that the word convergence is aging. It's not conveying what we need it to convey anymore. And I like to call it, we are beginning to not only see the beast system being set up real time in front of us, but we're also smelling the tribulation at this point. And we could literally see, 5 years ago, Tom, would you ever have imagined seeing what we see today?
Oh, no way. I didn't, right?
Yeah.
Because just go back to 2019, 2020 hadn't hit yet. We know what happened, and the entire dynamic has changed. So earlier this morning, I was having a cup of coffee, and I was thinking, my mind went back to February, March of 2020. And next thing I know, Klaus Schwab's book, The Great Reset, all the events that unfolded, you're thinking, this is interesting. We are still in it. As I look at these different things that are taking place. I appreciate so much your input. So central bank digital currencies, and it's a key to also differentiate, differentiate between centralized digital currency and decentralized. Can you explain the difference in those and,
Sure.
and where you see Bitcoin going and Ethereum and the others?
So normal crypto, that would be Bitcoin as the granddaddy, and you've got Ethereum as number 2 position in market share. And then you've got thousands and thousands of other variants of crypto. And they are all decentralized. They run on blockchain, and it is a digital ledger that is used to memorialize transactions, okay? Once a transaction gets into the blockchain, it cannot be altered unless there's permissions to do that. So it is important to know that the centralized version, the CBDCs are different than the normal blockchain that we know today because they are programmable, Tom. And that nuance, which very few people are aware of that, means, and you hear the World Economic Forum talk about programmable digital currency. And I think her name is Malmgren, is a big proponent of that. She gave a speech 2 years ago on programmable and what it means to them. Well, that's ultimately a lot of control because they can put policy and decisions about what is in your wallet based on their rules. And so you can read into if you are doing something that is not aligned with the world government eventually, they can turn things on and off in your wallet without you even having any point of control over it. And that's why centralized currency like that is going to be a very bad deal. And the question, the million-dollar question right now is, will we see that as the bride of Christ, as the church, before we're gone? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd like to actually work that. What will we possibly see before the rapture? I was talking with Bill Federer. I don't know if you know William Federer.
I've heard of him, yeah.
He, over the weekend, and he is a historian, absolutely brilliant. We were talking about Alex Newman is at the COP meeting right now, the climate meeting, and so Alex and I were talking a little bit about that, but these digital currencies, you say, will be tied into such things as the climate laws. So talking with Bill Federer, he brought up a very interesting point. He goes, we have a window of opportunity. We don't know how long this window is going to be open, could close at any time. He goes, one of the most foolish things that human beings do, and they've done it throughout history, is they let their guard down and thinking everything's good. He said, these globalists are not done. He goes, they're going to have their window of opportunity. As soon as they see a crack in the door, they're going to pounce back. Like in Genesis, where we read sin is crouching at the door, waiting for you. It never goes away. These globalists, he says, they aren't going away. They're like cancer that's in remission right now, just waiting to come back. And he said they will pounce back way harder than they did before.
That's right. I absolutely agree with you. Yep. So it's like now you have to talk. What comes in scope when we talk about digital currencies now is a part of that is what is the precursor event that makes people scramble to think that CBDCs are the answer that they need. So that has to do with the proposed reset, the Great Reset from the World Economic Forum and the Agenda 2030. So all of these elite global policies are designed to break, the world markets. And I and Britt and others, I spend most of my time looking at China and their stability and debt. I look at Japan is very fragile right now in that regard as well, and other countries are struggling with debt and with other things. And we, by the way, have out of control spending problem and debt. And so it's very easy to imagine that, a bank here or there will fail. And all of a sudden the FDIC decides that, we're not going to rescue you. And Janet Yellen has said as much a couple years ago. And so the thing is, we will have this situation where panic ensues and bank runs happen. And I think that when people realize that what they thought was their wealth in their 401ks or their bank accounts, et cetera, and all of a sudden that gets exposed in a way that is very destabilizing for their understanding, for their needs. And I think that that's very, very frightening for most people to think about. But if the government says, hey, we have a solution for you, and if you sign up in the next 90 days, this is my conjecture, this is not going to happen, but I'm thinking creatively here, that if you sign up in the next 90 days, we'll give you a bounty if you sign in as a bonus. So not only will we restore the previous value you have, but we'll pay you to adopt it. And there's just this cascading snowball.
Okay.
And yeah.
All right. So with this, I've been hearing for quite some time through friends of ours, and it makes sense to me that something will happen, and it sounds like this is what you're saying, that will collapse the economy. It'll be done intentionally in order to, it'll be a massive crisis has to take place in order to get people on board with it. They're completely wiped out unless my 401k, it's gone, whatever it is. You have bills to pay, you have rent, you have a mortgage, you have groceries.
It's frightening. It's frightening to think about this, actually.
So do you envision something like that happening overnight? We wake up, or we go to work on Monday morning, everything is shut down, and will be something like that, a massive crisis.
Well, if we look back at 2008 and the Lehman Brothers crisis that happened, some of it was rolled out over a period of times, but some of it just happened immediately. And so I think we'll see a pattern like that too. I don't think that they can coordinate the world like that, but I do think that it can happen at a push of a couple dominoes, and then the next phase of all of that will come in. So I think that people are, and I want to make sure that I'm clear. I'm not predicting that this will happen or that we will be here to witness that, but there will be some chaos that happens, a black swan event, if you will, that will shatter this the world as we know it today and cause the actual Great Reset to actually happen. Right now, the restraining force of us in the church is there. We have the Lord's sovereignty. He's not permitted it yet. And so we don't know where that boundary is. But the implications are very frightening. And what I've tried to do, Tom, this is scary. It's scary for me too, to think about this. So I've had to kind of reimagine what does fear and anxiety look like for me. And I've realized, I'm going to rethink about that. If I feel those emotions, I'm now going to let that roll off my back like a duck in water, beads off of their feathers. And I'm going to try to understand that this is the shortness signal. This is a signal that we are almost done with our shift, here. And we are about to be, into the end of the church age, and the rapture will occur, and then, basically all hell will break loose at that point. So when the restraining force of the church is there and the Lord sovereignly permits this to go forward, the Antichrist will come, first seal, and then we'll see what happens. We'll not be here to do that, but it's frightening to contemplate what will happen for those that are left behind.
Indeed it is. I liken the time that we are in right now, even with the election, where people are saying, hey, we got some breath, we can breathe.
It's decompressing.
It's decompressing is a sign in and of itself. Because when you look at the biblical signs, you have a few different times where I could point out in the Bible. One of them is Jesus says it's going to come at a time when you least expect it. If you just go back over the last 4.5, 5 years, everybody's on the edge. It's going to happen today. It's going to happen. Suddenly, okay. There was a case in point with one of my friends. He was at Home Depot the other day after the election. This lady was so excited. It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. He's trying to talk to her, give some biblical sense to her. She didn't want anything of it. She's just like, wow. And so to me, this is another sign, this kind of lull that we're in right now, or whatever it is that we can call it, which causes me to think, man, we better be prepared. I want to ask you a little bit more about how some of these things will be implemented, because I have some challenges in the thought process with that. But before we go there, Scott, I'm just thinking, you've developed a lot for after we are left behind. Mm-hmm. Or no, I shouldn't say we.
Yeah.
After those who don't know Christ are left behind, develop a lot of things for them. But with this, Scott, where is our hope for the person who's looking right now and going, this sounds scary, because we're probably going to get in a few more scary things over the next few minutes. But sounds scary, but where's our hope?
Our hope is in the Lord, and that's the biggest challenge for people today, to really reduce everything down. We've seen systems come and go. We've seen hope and things getting crushed by forces outside of our control. We've been subject to a fallen world and to the manipulations and machinations of elites and globalists all over the world. And I think that we're in perilous times. I think it will get a lot worse. So what we should be doing is realizing, all right, I get it. And there's this clarity that comes when we examine the Bible and what it says. So for many years, I was saved in 1978, Tom. No one taught me this stuff until I finally began to get exposed to Bible prophecy 8 years ago. And I'm embarrassed to say this, but I didn't even understand the full trajectory or the plan of salvation completely. I didn't understand about the millennium and about the eternal state. No one taught that in church, And I think a lot of people are in that kind of situation. So I think that our hope needs to be on biblical truth and understanding Jesus has this. We are the beloved bride, and he is going to have his will. He's already the overcomer that defeated this world. And if we don't have that perspective, we're going to get tossed to and fro. And yes, we're swinging right in our country right now, and there's extremely good beneficial things for economies and world trade and for helping Israel in a more formal way that is less frictional, if you will. So I imagine that the incoming administration will be doing really good things, and I know that Netanyahu and many others in Israel are very excited. So I think that that's going to be wonderful. But let's not be under the illusion that we're actually going to sustain this reprieve, this decompression, this sigh of relief that finally the cackling person is not going to be in office. And so I just think that, we have to have the right perspective. And yes, it's wonderful to experience a sense of almost relief and joy that things will get back kind of a little bit, but that doesn't mean that we're out of the woods yet. I think it will continue to get worse.
We're definitely not out of the woods yet.
Yeah.
Thinking of Israel, that's a whole nother dynamic. I would love to have some time to talk about that, but we'll skip that for right now.
Right.
With digital currencies, or CBDC, centralized, not all countries are on board. Not all systems are being built are the same. The U.S. has what they want to do. China has what they want to do. So to get this going, there's going to be even a lot of friction with that, or there's going to be a lot of difficulty to be able to develop a system that the Antichrist could control, it seems.
I don't know that's, my perspective has matured recently. And remember, Tom, I'm in the crypto space. I do blockchain. I do all of that stuff. So what I'm seeing right now, my only question is, who is behind each country's implementation of blockchain and crypto? Because the Bank of International Settlements has said, we are the world's central bank. And it's true. They are the ones that are above each country has its own central bank, and all of them do clearing transactions through the Bank of International Settlements. So in my view, as I think about it, and there's a map, you could see where is each country in its implementation of CBDCs, and we're well enough advanced in there that this is real and it's happening and it's working. So what I see is, where my question is how does this roll up from these countries in a compatible way so that the Bank of International Settlements can hand this to the Antichrist to control the world? And therefore, my private thought, this is me thinking, okay, critical thinking right here, is that although each country has its own branding for the central bank digital currency, I believe it's based on roughly the same architecture, so that if and when, and this has been planned, I'm sure, for it to be rolled up and consolidated into one point of authority, that is easy to do.
Okay, and that answers a huge question that I've had. How would that happen? I've watched some things on the Bank of International Settlement. Very interesting, especially when you look at that in light of something like the Federal Reserve and what each nation has. Very interesting, knowing that you also have 10 kings.
Yeah.
10 leaders who will give their power and authority to the beast. Is that somehow tied into the digital currencies that are planned by the different nations? So I just find it also fascinating. And by the way, everybody, I want to ask you, just take out a minute here to ask you to like, subscribe, and share. It's the only way we can really get these videos out there is with your help, and really would appreciate it. It's free to do that. Like, subscribe, and share. And thank you so much just for doing that part for us. Really appreciate it. Right. With this, Scott. Okay. AI is increasingly becoming a part of daily life. What do you see are the biggest challenges believers will face with AI as it continues to integrate into society?
So that's a really deep question. But one thing that I think is that AI is getting better and better at this question response format that it does, and it's very capable of doing many things. Where I have a red line, Tom, and I use AI every day because I'm developing software, and it's very, very good at helping to accelerate software development. But I do not ask AI for its opinion about anything, especially about biblical matters. That is a red line. You do not want to trust something that has been trained by sources that are not, that are of the world and that are of a fallen nature like that. We don't want to confuse where that boundary is, because I've heard already people that are asking AI, create a sermon on this topic, use these verses, spit it out for me. I want it to be 2,000 words, and it will do it.
Oh, I don't.
And on the surface, it looks really good, actually. It's surprising, actually. Yeah. But it's like a seduction. Mm-hmm. AI can seduce people into this false sense of trust. And I've experienced moments where I got creeped out when certain responses in my daily work were giving me back responses that were oddly affirming to me. And, oh, that's such a good question. And it's like the next form of dopamine hit from social media. So we're moving from Facebook ding or a text message, notification ding, to AI affirming people. And this was dopamine. It's well documented that people react. They can't let their device down. They have to go look at what just happened. And it's a form of addiction almost. And I think what's coming as AI seeps into the systems of this world, smart devices, phones, computers, watches, that voice, that persona that AI can present to you is going to be the next form of attraction and dopamine. Like, I can't get enough of being complimented by AI. The smartest thing in the world is complimenting me for my thinking. Yeah, I could see that being a big problem.
Wow, that's a huge when you start to put it in that perspective. When you think of the demonic side and the spiritual dynamic that's behind these things, and you look at where we are, just how fast things have increased with technology, and you consider that it has to be the mind of a man, the brain of a person, that was able to put something together and go, oh yeah, wait, I have an idea. I've seen interviews with a couple of tech people from Silicon Valley that have said they've had a vision come to them while they were doing whatever, their yoga or whatever.
Well, they're microdosing, LSD and things like that.
Yeah, and so these things are coming to them, but they work.
Yeah.
And they implement them.
And that's just like the satanic thing. I mean, this is happening all over the place. It's a lie. But there's benefits to aligning yourself with that kingdom, the Antichrist kingdom. People look at Hollywood. They're rich, they're famous, they're influential, but it's all based on, things that are highly satanic and demonic. So something that we are commanded to avoid.
Well, yeah, and also just a word of caution to anybody out there that hears these things when you think, well, can the devil really be in these details? Well, yes, I think of Jesus himself being tempted by the devil himself. What do you say? You see all the kingdoms of the world. I have the power to give you these things. Jesus didn't challenge the devil's power and authority to give him those things.
Right.
But what he did is he brought back the word of God and basically pushed the devil away. So the devil is the god of this world. He's given that authority at the time of Adam and Eve. So Satan is still going to tempt and test people with the same thing. I will give you this if you just give me your allegiance. I'll give you the ability to do this, and think of the power you'll have.
Yeah.
Think of the authority that you'll have. Think of the riches you have. I believe it affects all Hollywood, the tech world, and so forth. So you look at it from a biblical teaching perspective, an interpretation on Bible theology. It's there in the Bible. That principle is taught, especially when you see it in Jesus being tempted in such a way as that. Global surveillance is expanding with satellite coverage. How should Christians navigate the increasing pressure of being monitored, both for personal privacy and faith-based reasons?
At the end of the day, we can't stop it. You've got satellites. Look at SpaceX launching all the Starlinks up there. There's 4,600 satellites right now that form a mesh network. And those are communication-based, and the military and other government agencies have tons of satellites that can zoom in on you, and they could get resolutions down to a meter squared. And so with all the cameras on the traffic lights and everything perched up high, you just can't escape being surveilled nowadays. In fact, I'm sure that Alexa and others are sometimes listening to us. And I just think that you have to make smart decisions about what do you talk about in the presence of a smart device or something like that. I put my phone and my stuff in a blackout bag when I have sensitive conversations. I do not want to be. So I might be slightly advanced in paranoia there, more than the average person, but I believe that we have to be as cautious as we can about what we share, how we do it, what we rely on. And just to give you one slight thing that I'm worried about right now, I'm kind of hitting the red button right here, Tom, is that I'm noticing that AI technology is being downloaded into our computers through updates, and that happens on your smart devices and everything. So what we're seeing right now, there's a form of whistleblower. Windows operating system is trying to get a new feature in place called Recall, and it takes a screenshot of your screen every few seconds. And then what it does is it ingests that and processes what is it seeing. Now, the stated public-facing goal of that is to help you recall, there's the name, you could say 3 months from now, hey, AI, where is my blah, blah, blah document? I think I wrote it about 3 months ago. And it will know that because it looked at all your stuff and analyzed it. And it can surface up those things that you would have otherwise forgotten. And there's a, quote, benefit to that. But think about what that is doing. If it's taking a screenshot, imagine what goes on your screen. When you log into your bank, when you log into this, when you're on a Zoom with somebody and you see things on your screen, it could be very, very frightening, the loss of privacy. Now, Microsoft will say that data never leaves your PC, but let me remind everybody that Microsoft also said that Recall would never be deployed on normal Windows computers. They would only be deployed on Surface laptops that have NPUs, the neural processing unit chip. But they have violated that concept, and the plumbing for this Recall and for Copilot, which is their AI, that pops up every time that you're using a Windows app like Office, for example, Outlook, Excel. It's always asking you, can I help you? Can I help you? And that's the thing. Many apps nowadays are asking for permission to begin looking at what you're doing, looking at your Zoom, looking at what you're saying, offering to summarize the Zoom session. And when that happens, who knows where that data is actually going to be stored. So I think we just have to be wise, about what we're doing.
It's here to help you.
Yeah, quote
So they
unquote.
tell us. It's also for your peace. It's also for your safety.
Now, there was a
all these
lot of
things.
pushback on recall, and Microsoft has altered its strategy just a little bit, but there's no way that it's going to go away completely.
What do you say? What would be your words of encouragement for all of our viewers talking about these things that can be overwhelming? And we just got started,
Yeah.
but we're out of time.
Yeah.
But there's so much more we could discuss. So what would you say? People are feeling anxious about it. They're getting overwhelmed. What would be your words of encouragement or your words to say to them as we wrap things up?
Well, I think that the number one thing to do is make sure you're in the Word and be anchored, be in community with people that you know and trust, your church, your small group, because you're going to need those relationships coming forward. Also, I think that being smart about what we see, being prepared, not as a prepper, but just as someone that's wise. And also, I think that understanding the season that we're in and the proximity of the rapture, we don't know the day or the hour, but what we do know is that we're one day closer than when we first believed. And Jesus said that we should know the season, we should be able to see it. And when we do that, we should be looking up. So this is the most intensive shifting that we have to do from fear and anxiety about what could happen and move it into missional purpose where we start laying down childish things. We start working on personal sanctification. We're starting to work on the things that we know we need to work on in our lives, our spiritual lives especially, and get that done. Be in community, help preach the gospel, be about the Father's business in every way that we can.
And thank you. And we have so much hope because our hope is in the Lord Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Thank you for joining me, Scott. It was great having you in studio. Wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. God bless you guys. And again, you can connect with Scott. You can also connect with us here at hopeforourtimes.com. God bless you guys. And we will be talking to you soon.